Welcome back to the Game Change mini-series, where we are covering the what, the why, and the how of Game Change. This is part 2, the why of the Game Change initiative. Now that we understand what we're aiming to accomplish, this episode will dig into the potential impact that this program could have on the region and the country, and why that is so important. I'm your host, Logan Jones. Let's dive into some more interviews from the Game Change Summit. I'm Logan Jones with Middle Tech. I'm here with Will Metcalf from the University of Louisville. So Will, let's just start this off by talking about your position with the University of Louisville and your association to the Game Change program.
Yeah, thanks. Will Metcalf, I'm an Associate Vice President for Research and Innovation at the University of Louisville. That means really three things. So one is I'm responsible for research development at U of L. So that means building big teams to go after large funding opportunities. I'm also responsible for our new venture creation and translation of our inventions that come out of that research activity into practice. So that means like all that research produces a new patent or other form of intellectual property, and then we try to take that and make it into use, right? Create a product.
Take it to market.
Yeah, take it to market, solve some problem in the world with that invention, usually through commercial applications. So like one of the best ways to do that, to get it to the most people, is to create a company that people will pay for something, right? Yeah. So you can scale it.
Sure.
So that's what we do.
And speaking of making this a reality, one of the things I want to try and accomplish through shooting this content is just communicating what is the best case scenario. How could this impact not only this community, but the whole country and maybe even the whole globe in some cases. So talk about what that best case scenario could potentially look like.
Yeah, so it's all about improving human life, right? So it's like you step back from it. It's like economic opportunity is great, but not if it's making the world dirtier or, less livable. So it's about improving the way we live and interact with the world. And so like if we can do that, we can make jobs safer through robotics and automation. We can make, the environment cleaner by recycling and reusing technologies or being less, having a lower impact on the environment when we're mining these materials. It's the kind of thing we're thinking about. So that's the best impact, is creating a great economic opportunity while improving our world and helping people live more, productive, happy lives.
All right, we are here with Jesse Shook, who is the Talent and Workforce Development for Game Change, as well as the VP of Workforce and Economic Development at KCTCS. So Jesse, thanks for taking some time to hop on here and talk with us about this Game Change initiative. Just to start us off here, talk about what your position is and what perspective you bring to the Game Change initiative.
Yeah, thank you so much, Logan. So my position at KCTCS is, as you mentioned, Vice President of Workforce and Economic Development. And at a very high level, I'm responsible for aligning our programs with the needs of business partners and identifying intersections where our educational institutions, our 16 colleges across the Commonwealth, can work in stronger partnership with employers to address talent needs related to talent attraction, retention, and development. And so ultimately, what we aim to do at KCTCS is ensure that through these strong partnerships with the businesses across the Commonwealth, our students are exiting our programs with high-level skill sets and opportunities to enter the workforce with higher level wages than they would be without those business partnership opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that's just such a critical part of this entire initiative, is making sure that the workforce is there to support, this entire ecosystem development that is underway with the Game Change initiative. What does the bull case look like for this program? What is the best case scenario? Kind of paint us a picture of what this future can look like, not only in Kentucky, but in this region and in the United States as a whole.
The best case scenario is, first and foremost, people understand that jobs in manufacturing aren't the manufacturing jobs that we thought of 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? These are high tech, high skill opportunities to make a family supporting wage at a good job at an employer who is really focused on advancing our economy, right? So these are not the jobs that we think of when we think about manufacturing. There's a stigma there that we've got to work together to combat and readdress, because I don't think that most people understand these opportunities within this space. The other piece, I mentioned the overlooked talent pipelines. Every single person matters for our economic sustainability, even outside of the manufacturing space. We've got a lot of people who are already working, who have some college but no credential. To my knowledge, there is no state that has a very concrete strategy, a scalable and sustainable strategy to mobilize individuals who are already in the workforce, probably have some debt carried over from pursuing higher education and not persisting to complete their credential. And a lot of them are working in jobs that are prime targets for automation. So we've got to look at the individuals who are already in the workforce, who may not be making a family wage, who need that on-ramp opportunity for the jobs of today and tomorrow. We've got some great best practice things happening in both of our states. We've got amazing programs to target individuals in the justice system, for example, in Kentucky in the welding space. And so we've built out welding labs within the prisons, and the individuals who are still incarcerated have the opportunity to learn those skills. They're earning dollars. Those dollars are going into an account for them so that when they do transition out, they've got the means to secure housing, to secure transportation. We're setting them up for success once they're ready to transition back into society. So I think the key here, Logan, is that every single person matters in order for us to sustain this economic growth that we're seeing. So we are not going to be able to fill the current jobs that we have, much less add new jobs, unless we create a holistic approach in which every single individual has that pathway for opportunity, no matter their background, no matter their barriers, right? When I think about the biggest challenge in the workforce development space, and this is why Game Change is so powerful, it is that scalable, sustainable lens. And so what we often see in the way that we do targeted business outreach, we're not coordinating with other entities that have assets and resources for companies. And so it gets very confusing for companies to navigate the ecosystem, the education and workforce development ecosystem. So if through Game Change, we can create a simplified playbook for companies. We're currently doing an asset map. We're looking at where we've got these best practices. What would it take to get them to a level of scale and sustainability? What investments are needed in that space? Where are there gaps? As I mentioned, these 600,000 individuals in Kentucky with some college and no credit or no degree, that's a major gap. And it's one that needs to be addressed, right? So how are we then investing to address those gaps? And then how are we creating a simplified playbook and outreach strategy to support these companies to know and understand where those pipelines are, how they can tap into them, and what supports are needed on their end to really make it successful?
All right, we're here with Terry Samuel. Terry has been on the podcast before. We were just saying you were on the podcast right before COVID hit, so I'm glad to be catching up with you in a better situation than that. But Terry, talk about your position real quick and the perspective that you bring to this program.
So I'm the president of the Kentucky Science and Technology Corporation, better known as KSTC. We're a statewide nonprofit economic development and working with Tennessee. There's an equivalent in Tennessee called Launch Tennessee, and we're kind of bringing that nonprofit economic development. KSTC spends a lot of time with entrepreneurs, startup companies, tech companies, and so this NSF engine fits right in.
This is all very exciting, and we're all, trying to really rally behind this and collaborate behind it. And I want to try and communicate just how big of a deal it could be if we accomplish what the goals of this program truly are. So, in your eyes, what kind of impact could this have if we truly do modernize manufacturing? As big of a thing as that sounds, but what impact would that have not only on this region but in the United States as a whole?
I think one of the things I think we've seen in the U.S., and it's been talked a lot about as part of this CHIPS and Science Act, is we need to onshore manufacturing. Not all manufacturing, right? There's going to be, I'm not sure flat panel TVs are ever going to be manufactured in the U.S. again, right? But things like automobiles, things like aerospace, anything defense related. We all learned during COVID, we can't get PPE, and people doing crazy things to get it out of foreign countries, and respirators and that kind of stuff. We have to onshore stuff. So what does this mean to the economy? To the U.S., we're going to onshore manufacturing that's critical to our economy, number one. Number two, we have the ability, because of our geographic location, because of our natural resources, whatever percentage it is, of Americans live within a day's drive of Kentucky or Tennessee. We have the waterways, right? We have the Ohio, we have the Mississippi, we have the motorways, we have the air freight, right? So we have the logistics. I mean, you can't replace where people live very easily in waterways, right? So we have that core. If we can onshore and make American manufacturing critical again and have Kentucky and Tennessee be that epicenter, you know, the impact could be huge.
We're here with Amy Henry of the TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority. All right, so let's try and paint the picture as we kind of wrap up here around what the potential impact of this program could be. If we set out to achieve this big goal and it's actually achieved, talk about what it means for Kentucky and Tennessee, but also for the country as a whole.
Yeah, well, so I think it has a big aim, and it could be a really big impact if we set out to transform manufacturing in the region and then supply it with the sustainable energy it needs and bring in the workforce. Could really make a generational change in these two states where there is a sustained industry that could continue growing depending on the needs of manufacturing in the future.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of what it could do for the country is to demonstrate new capability. And I hope we can start here, but then share lessons learned across the country and replicate this in other places, because I think it has a lot of potential.
And I think that's critical, because what we've seen over the past, couple decades is we tried offshoring all of our manufacturing, and now we're seeing things like the big chip shortage that's going on, and being able to have a lot of our weapons manufacturing not be onshored. And I think that figuring out what that formula is, if we can figure that out here in this corridor where we have so many logistical advantages and we have workforce advantages and we have land cost advantages, if we can develop that model here, I think that's a huge deal for the United States of America. So I'm very encouraged.
I think that's one of the things I like the most about this effort, is that it's not just about costs and the values of things, but it is also paying attention to the other resources, the workforce. What are we going to do with our waste or used materials? And how are we protecting the environment as we do all this? So it's a very, very holistic.
I'm TJ Barnett of Middle Tech, and we're here at the Game Change Summit with Robert Turner, the Director of Technology Transfer to Tennessee State University. What excites you the most just about what's happening here at this summit, and what can become of it with that $160 billion fund?
Yeah. I think that just the fact, like I said, that we brought all these major industry players together in one room. And a lot of times these folks are, competing and collaborating at the same time. So getting them to be just so candid in this environment and voice their concerns, voice their needs, voice their strategies and goals. I see this as really ushering in a new wave of, like I mentioned, inclusive innovation. The manufacturing industry has these stereotypes of being exclusionary, male-dominant, and the fact that we're embodying these new technologies in the space that give the accessibility within the labor force between men and women. It's no longer a brute force industry, right? It's a technology-enabled industry, along with, and additionally, in the vein of inclusive innovation, we're really big on just anybody and everybody who has the desire and the acumen to participate as entrepreneurs, as inventors, as creators in this space. We're 100% ready and willing to give them the resources to do so, and that's really what touches on my heart.
All right, I hope you're coming out of that segment feeling inspired. I know for me, that was one of my favorite questions I got to ask at the summit. I'm an ideas guy. I love talking about the potential impact that this program could have, not only on this region, but on the country as a whole. But I think even more important than that is to discuss where the rubber meets the road with this whole program. So in part 3 of this series, we're going to be discussing the how of the Game Change Initiative. So we're going to be discussing how are we going to accomplish the goals of this program, what needs to happen to find success, and who's contributing to the pursuit of those goals. So to learn more and get involved with Game Change, you can visit gamechangengine.org. Stay tuned for part 3.